Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another presentation as part of the Berkshire High Peaks Festival. This music festival is brought to you by Close Encounters with Music. My name is Carolyn Regula, and I will be your host today. All of our sessions are being recorded and will be live streamed on YouTube as well. You can find all of our talks on our YouTube channel, even after they've been presented. And we encourage you all to subscribe to Close Encounters with Music. You can also consider supporting Close Encounters with Music. The mission is to engage the imagination of diverse concert audiences in a welcoming setting, to connect listeners to performers and composers, foster the excitement and sense of community that live performance builds, and to establish a comfortable listening environment, providing educational and artistically uplifting experiences. If you are interested in supporting Close Encounters with Music, you can do so by the link I will be sending into the audience chat. You can use this chat to communicate with yourselves throughout the session. For questions relating to our guest, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit questions to me, and then I will pool them together to ask our presenter. Thank you all so much for joining us for this summer of persevering with our music. To welcome our presenter for today, we have Mr. Yehuda Hanani. Hold on one moment, Mr. Hanani. Go get your sound ready. Perfect, you are on.
Thank you, Carolyn. It is good afternoon to everybody who is with us today. It is quite a unique situation for me to introduce a childhood friend who is going to enrich our 46 students with stories, with information, with advice. Atar Arad, whom everybody here knows as the viola player in the Cleveland Quartet. This is the official history, but I would like to, if you don't mind, to go to the prehistory and go all the way back to our childhood together. I remember Ataro, Ati, as we used to call him, as a 12-year-old cute child with a lot of curls on his head. Of course, there's not much left of that at this point. And I would like to welcome Atar.
Hi, and you kept your hair.
Well, they changed color over the years. But let's talk a little bit about this very beginning, what it was like, because I remember you as a violin player.
Yes.
In the youth orchestra. Why don't you tell us about the switch? What happened that made you choose the viola? And was it a traumatic experience? Was it a difficult switch? Was it falling in love with a new instrument? Why don't you just tell us about that?
Okay, I will. But I have to say something about where we met. Yehuda, can I?
Of course.
Yeah, we met in the Israeli Youth Orchestra. And I think, when I joined them, I was, I think, 11 years old. And I still remember, like yesterday, that we had an audition. We had two orchestra, one the preparative orchestra, and then the real orchestra. And I was so young that, of course, I thought I would be in the preparatory orchestra. But we had an audition, and I still remember I played the piece which is called Scène de Ballet, Berriot, And then I had to sight read. And they gave me the beginning of the unfinished symphony of Schubert. And I look at it and I saw the double note. I look at it and I say, oh yeah, that's easy. It's like the piece that I was playing before, which was called Elfen Tanz, the sound of the fairy, which goes along, a double thing, you know, that it sounds fast, but it's not difficult. So I played the beginning of the Schubert like it was the Elfen Tanz. And I saw that everyone was laughing. So I said, they laugh because it's not fast enough. So I was accelerating like crazy. I was accelerating like crazy. And the faster I played, the more laughter. And then I said, maybe it's not loud enough. So, and you know, the Schubert, of course, you know, it's pianissimo and stuff. So I played louder and louder. And the more it, you know, like I did that, the bigger the laughter. And they put me in the real orchestra in the last stand of, you know, the first violin, which I couldn't believe. And then I was in this orchestra for many years, and I think until the age of 18. And I have to say this, this, you know, like people say, you know, that in order to succeed or to develop, you have to be in the right place in the right time. And this orchestra, I have to say, was the right place and the right time for me, because this is where I met a lot of people who became famous musicians later, and we were all interacting and talking about music and learning from each other. And one of the people that I met there was Yehuda. And Yehuda, you played the Dvořák with us, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, I still remember it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I still remember it, and I still admire you for that.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
So
very kind, Ati.
but that's really, you know, this orchestra was the thing that at least changed my life. Yeah. So now about the viola, you wanted to ask.
Yes, please.
And here is the thing, I changed to viola kind of much later in my life. I was studying in a very special school, which was in Belgium, which was called La Chapelle Musicale Reine Elisabeth, that still exists, but in another, with another formula. But at that time, they were like, you know, like you had to audition, a lot of people auditioned because you had 3 years of studies paid, not only paid, you had room and board and food and lessons, and it was unbelievable to be accepted there, and very hard to be accepted there. And I was studying with a teacher by the name of Andre Gertler, that maybe was the most teacher in Europe at that time. And I was preparing for a career in violin. And I was already kind of, you know, begin to have successes with the Israeli arrogance that we have. I said, oh,
Speak for yourself, Adi. Speak for
okay.
yourself.
Okay. I was hesitating before saying that. So I said, oh, just give me a viola. And if you give me a viola, I could play. So I was surprised they gave me a viola. And so I had a problem. I could not even read the clef of the viola. So I asked them, what are you going to play? And they said, we thought the first piece we are working on would be Beethoven, Opus 18, number 5. So I took the music and I learned, began to learn the viola clef. And every note I calculated, go up 1 tone and go down an octave. And, slowly learned my part. And basically had to learn it from memory if I wanted to play with them. So this thing, like the first rehearsal came, we sit down and we play, and after 1 page, and I am not exaggerating, after 1 page, I knew 2 things. I knew that I'm a violist, and the second thing is that I really want to play in a quartet. And and I had the impression that the three others who were very good players thought the same about being a violist. They were kind of surprised. So I took I went to the Chapelle, to my studio in the Chapelle, and in the Chapelle Musicale, the teacher came to the studio of the student to give the lesson. And it was like 3 hours lessons, it was unbelievable. And so my teacher came to my studio and he saw the viola on the piano. And he said, "What is it?" And I said, "This is a viola." He said, "Oh, come on, throw it away." And I said, "Oh, I like it." And I didn't throw it away. I was playing more and more. And then the day I finished my studies in the Chapelle, I said, I'm a violist now, and I'm, beginning. And I told my teacher.
Ati, did you ever have any regrets about the violin? Did you ever miss it? The wonderful repertoire, the chances to be a star, it's much harder to be a star on the viola.
Yes. No, I mean, yes, I understand the question. And no, I never had a regret. Actually, it's funny that you say it, because you remember a journalist, a culture journalist by the name of Michael Oad. You remember him?
Yeah.
He interviewed me, and then he called, after I won, the Geneva competition or whatever.
Right.
He interviewed me, and the title of it was, "Who Wants to Be a Star?"
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you said that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I decided to do that, and I called my teacher to tell him that that's my decision, and he began to shout at me, and he was Hungarian with an Hungarian accent, "Atar, you are an idiot," and stuff like this. And I said, maybe I am, but that's what I'm doing. And that's, we just cut the cord.
The relationship,
The
yeah.
relationship.
I'm curious, just before we move on, it's still Mr. Gertler you're talking about, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I heard stories from students that he had two different, he charged 2 different fees for his lessons. One was with fingerings, one was without fingerings.
No,
It was less expensive without fingerings. And if you only paid for the lesson without the fingerings, he would demonstrate putting a handkerchief on his hand. Is this a true story?
absolutely not possible. And
Okay.
we finished with a fight.
Yeah.
We finished with a fight, but this story is not right. No, he was not that stupid.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's not true.
So
Yeah, anyway, and then came, this is one thing that I want the students to hear, is that I decided to be the best violist in the world. Full stop. Which is, this is stupid, yeah? But I was practicing like mad. And that was the time in my life that I practiced the most. I went to a shop, I bought all the viola music that they had, and I was practicing Paganini caprices on the viola, and, you know, with a lot of conviction. And, you know, that stupid thing, you know, say, I am going to be the best. Actually, maybe it didn't make me the best, but it makes me a decent violist. So that's how
when you won the prize in the competition, it was on the viola, not on the violin. And
on the viola, yeah. On the viola. And I, you know, like I went, you know, so sure of myself, unbelievable. And this was on the viola. And then Gertler heard, you know, about the prize, and he contacted me, and he suggested that I be his assistant in the Brussels Conservatory. And I refused. I said, no, I'm a violist. I'm not teaching violinists. Yeah, I was really, really fanatic. And what I'm trying to say is sometimes being fanatic is something that, you know, like not in politics and stuff, but
of course, yeah.
But in work, you know, and what we are doing, you know, that was.
I tell my students all the time, in order to really, really succeed in what you're doing, you have to have no perspective. You have to lose all relative perspective. What you're doing has to become the most important things in the world.
Yeah, I totally.
And that's very true.
Totally.
So let's take it one step forward. I was in Marlborough and I met the other members of the Cleveland Quartet. They were just forming then, with Paul and Martha and, of course, Donald. And we sort of lost touch for a couple of years. And the next thing I knew is that you were joining the Cleveland. So let's take it from that point of our story.
Okay, well, it's kind of funny. It's okay if I tell funny stories?
Please, the more funny stories you tell, the better.
Okay, so, you know, before I played with the Cleveland, I made my living as a soloist on the viola. And luckily, you know, I had concerts. And one of them was with a conductor by the name of Bloomberg, you know, who was conducting one of the orchestras in Berlin. And but he lived in London, like I did. And he invited me for a dinner in his house after we played together. And so he asked me if I liked chamber music. And I said, of course I do. And he said, I want you to listen to something. And he put a recording of the Cleveland Quartet before I joined, of course.
Right.
Of the Cleveland Quartet playing Brahms Quartet, #1. And asked, do you like it? And I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, oh, I don't like, you know, this, whenever you have a crescendo, you also get so excited and you accelerate and stuff like that. And I explained to him why I didn't like it. And so he answered me, well, for me, this is the best chamber music recording I've ever heard. So we disagreed, not for the first time, because we already disagreed in the Harold in Italy that I played with him.
Right.
But we disagreed, but with, you know, friendly disagreement. After the dinner in his house, I went back home. And at midnight, the phone rings. And guess who was on the phone? It was the Cleveland Quartet calling me to ask if I would be available to try out, with them. And I was so shocked also because we just talked about them. I was so, and I said I didn't like the recording. And so I was so shocked I could not talk.
Oh.
and then, it took me some time to say, yeah, I would be interested. Later, they said that they interpreted my silence as that he never heard about us. This is why. So we said, they brought me to the United States to try with them, and it had to be absolute secret. Absolute secret. Why? Another funny story. There was a big article that was going to go in the New York Times about the quartet, and it was written, I think, by the wife of Lee Narell. Yeah. So, and it was going to appear, and in this article they said that they will never play with other people.
Oh,
they are so fit together that they will never play with someone else. And here, they didn't want anyone to know that they are trying someone. And so I went there for 3 or 4 days. Went there 3 or 4 days to rehearse with them and to find out if I want to play with them, if they want to play with me. And I could not, no one could know that I was there. So to entertain me in the times that we were not rehearsing, I was playing ping pong with Dan Weilerstein.
Right.
And then the day came, we rehearsed, and then they were going to decide if I can join them for the tour in Europe, 2 months tour in Europe. So and say, could you wait here? And I said yes. And they turned the TV, and there was a soccer match. And I was sure that after 5 minutes, they are going to come and ask me to join them.
Right.
After 5 minutes, they didn't come. And after 10 minutes, they didn't come. Then the referee whistled for the halftime. They didn't come. And I could not understand that. I said, they would be lucky, of course. You remember who is the best violist in the world, yeah?
Right.
And they will be lucky. And nothing. And then I made a decision that when the referee whistled for the end of the game, if they are not there and they asked me to join, I said, no, I'm not interested anymore. And they came maybe 1 minute before the final
whistle
to tell me, to ask me to join them for this, at first for the summer tour, and I really, really didn't understand that. And of course, after playing in the quartet, I totally understand it. And I think this decision was really fast, because, if I played in a quartet, I would like to try more, the person with whom we are playing. And, I was not aware of the intricacies of the quartet and so. In other words, I was naive and I had a lot to learn. So that was my beginning with them. And they told me how they got my name. And it was 2 things, 2 people. One was, they asked Sylvia Rosenberg. I don't know, you know her, yeah?
Yes, of course. We played many concerts together.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So she one who told them, I have a person for you. And then the other one was John Graham, violist who was teaching in the Juilliard And, we met in another place, which was another lucky place for me to be, was Prashakov, the chamber music, open chamber music. And I was talking to John Graham, who was there too. And I told him, that I have a dream to move to America. Because at that time, it was the time after the hippies. And so I think this was a free country, the freest country in the world. And I really wanted to go there. And the second thing I said, I have another dream, is to play in a string quartet. And we said it, in a meal, there. And then they asked him to recommend someone. He said, I have the guy for you. So they went and bought a recording. I had a recording that was kind of known at the time, was the Paganini Sonata per la Grande Viola. And they listened to it, and they said, oh, he will never, they said to John Graham, he will never be interested in coming playing with a quartet. And John Graham said, he told me that he has two dreams. One, to go to the United States, and the second one is to play in a quartet. So this is how we began.
Fantastic. That's a beautiful story, Ati. So now let's move one step forward. So you are in the quartet now, and tell us a little bit about the dynamics of the quartet, what it was like to rehearse with them. I'm sure that our students and our friends would be interested in hearing what happens in the kitchen when you cook a quartet together before you take it on the stage.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, there are all kind of quartets. Yeah. But I can tell you about my quartet, how it was. Mm-hmm. We were very fanatic. Remember, I said being fanatic. Right. So we were fanatic about every single note that we played. And the trouble is that one fanatic is good. 4 fanatics, sometimes you just cannot continue, because everyone has their opinions. And so rehearsals were really, really difficult. In the end, it was really rewarding, but the rehearsals were difficult because we had 4 people. We had 4 people, and everyone was right, but with different interpretation.
Right.
And, and we were all, one of us would talk about every note. The other would not talk for 2 weeks, but then he would not shut his mouth, and suddenly, but basically we were 4 people with strong opinions.
When there was a conflict in interpretation, was there one person who actually had the final word?
No, not officially.
Uh-huh.
But, like sometimes you learn also that, to say, I would prefer this, but what he suggests, since we had respect for each other, what he suggests is not stupid. So I will do my best to make it happen. So I would try it even harder than my own opinion. And
it's very interesting, Ati. The reason I'm asking is that because the sublime Schubert quintet for 2 cellos, yeah. I have played with just about every quartet you can imagine, with the Tokyo, with the Vermeer, and the chemistry is so different from one group to the other. With the Vermeer, there was one person.
Yeah.
And he was making all the decisions, and everybody was tremendously respectful and admiring and going with his wishes. That's Shmuel.
Yeah, I know. But the thing
With
is,
other quartets, they were actually at each other's throats sometimes, shouting and disagreeing.
yeah. See, we played the concert in England,
Yeah,
and after that there was a reception, and one of the people in the reception was a guy by Edward Heath, who was the Prime Minister of England, and at that time he was former Prime Minister,
right.
and I had a conversation with him, and he had a nice, deep voice, and he asked, "Who is your leader?" And I said to him, "We don't have a leader." And you know his answer? His answer, "There is no such thing."
Oh,
And then he said that he knew the Amadeus Quartet,
right.
his friends, and they had a leader. So I said to him, regardless, in our quartet, there is no leader. So much so that one time we played at Queen Elizabeth, all I remember, and there were two green rooms. And one green room, it was written Donald Weilerstein. The other green room was the three other names.
Right.
So Paul and me, we see that, we don't talk. We went into the Weilerstein room, both of us. That's kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Ati, tell us a little bit about the lifestyle. I'm sure that our students would be very interested. The traveling, the hotels, the rehearsal schedule, the jet lag, the whole package that came with those long tours on the road.
Yeah, well, I have to say the same. A lot of it was the same thing as the working on the, on every note in a fanatic way, etc., etc. We had, we had different taste about life too, and sometimes, even about traveling, I always like to go earlier, to an airport, to just make sure, and at least two others want as late as possible. They will not waste time at the airport.
Right.
And so we have to decide, because we take sometimes, the same taxi or the same car. We had to decide. And I remember one time we were in Copenhagen and we had a little fight about how early we should take the flight. And then and I lost. We went kind of in the last minute. And then there was, the traffic was stopped because a huge train passed. And, I almost enjoyed it, to lose the flight, to just show them I was right. We actually did not lose the flight. We had Paul Katz had to run with the cello like crazy for, for 2 kilometers or something like this. So we had, also about what we do with our free time and stuff. We didn't tend to spend a lot of time together out of the rehearsals. And yeah, so kind of it's the same thing, but like the goal is so unbelievable, because the quartet music is the best imaginable. That we take it, we live like this and we take it.
There are stories about the members of the Budapest Quartet who did not get along personally. They would actually take separate trains to get to the, so their private lives and their personal life were completely unrelated to their professional work. And then, of course, they would sit on the stage and play beautifully together. So you're telling me something similar, that there was no real connection between what took place professionally and what took place personally.
Yeah, And then, I have to, and of course, if something happens, like we really support each other, and I think we were, you can call it the best friends, but we know, where is the border. But let me tell you that, I took the train one time and I met my heroes, of my youth, the Amadeus Quartet.
Right.
And I was shocked that they were all sitting, if not two of them in the same wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But then I was a student in Brussels and I went to a big concert of the Amadeus Quartet, and something really funny happened. Norbert Breining went into the stage and he had his bow in one hand and his music in the other. He forgot to take his violin to the stage. So he sit down, put the music on the stand, and realizes that he didn't have the violin. So he had to leave the stage and find his violin and come back. So many years later, I became friend with the violist, Shidlov. And I told him that I was in this concert. And he said to me, "Oh, you were there. This is our best." We, the three others, we saw it coming because he was ready to go on the stage and his violin was on the piano backstage. And we looked at each other
And
without needing to say a word, only because we are a member of the quartet and it's enough to look at each other. And
of
what
course.
we say to each other, don't tell him, let him go on the stage.
That is very sweet.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your feelings about the role of the quartet in the ensemble. Right there in the middle.
The role,
The function of the viola player in the quartet.
oh, the viola.
Yes.
Well, you see, when you play in the quartet, I think after a while, it doesn't matter to you, like who has the melody, who has the main line. It, of course, like we play a Haydn quartet. And of course, Haydn gave most to the first violin.
Right.
So the violinist actually is playing it, but I am playing it too. I'm playing it too, because it doesn't matter who is playing it. It's all our soup together.
Yeah.
And so it becomes less and less important if you have, if you have the main melody or not. This is one thing. In other words, also you cherish being in the middle, you love it. Remember, that's why I became a violist. That's when I played in a quartet, I loved it so much. That's why I became a violist. Then from time to time, some composers give us, the violist, something unforgettable, like Bartok's Sixth Quartet.
Or Dvorak.
Or Dvorak, the American quartet. And well, there are a lot, and then you really want the world not to be the same after you play, But basically, it doesn't matter who plays what, because if the violinist plays out of tune, you play out of tune. It's the same. If the violinist is inspired and plays fantastically well, it also depends on what you are offering the violinist.
You are reminding me of what Sasha Schneider told us. We were coaching with him He was the second violinist, of course, of the Budapest Quartet. And he said, make mistakes in your own part because you are focusing, you're listening to everybody else's.
Good thing to say.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
I have to tell you something that I, when we were interviewed with the Cleveland Quartet, we never had first and second violin. Either Dan or Peter were one of our violinists, but never second violin. And
Beautiful.
it was genuine. It was really genuine because that's the way we felt.
But at the same time, they never switched parts.
They never, but we had often when we had to play, say, a piano quartet, it will be Peter who is playing it and not
I
Dan.
see. Right.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Ati, I want to move on to something that I'm very interested is your compositions.
Okay.
I know that you wrote a viola concerto. You probably wrote some chamber works. Tell us a little bit about your experience as a composer.
Okay. So first of all, I will tell you how I began. I mean, actually, I will tell you how I didn't begin.
All right.
Yeah, and that I think it's kind of important story, not for me, but is when I was the age of 11, I went to a violin competition, which was called the American Israeli Foundation. And I played and got what? Third prize. The first was Perelman, and the second was Miriam, that I never forgive her until today.
Okay. But you were still a violinist at the time.
Yeah. 11 years old. And it was so easy for me because I didn't know what it is, you want me to play, I play, that's it, As a lot of 11 years old before they know.
Right.
So then they had a competition, composition competition. And at that time, I wrote a movement of a sonata for violin alone, but violin alone is not like, just like in the style of Vivaldi, I called it. I can sing it to you if you want. I still remember it. Went like this. Ta-ram, pom, 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 pa-da-da-ram, pom, dun, dun, da-di-da-ram, pom, pom, something like this.
Right.
Wrote it and sent it. And I thought, it's so easy, so I will win something there too, And one day I was waiting, but one day I received my music back by the post. And there was no one word about we regret, but you need to learn, or you need to take lessons, or you need to write the piano part also. Nothing.
No comments.
No comments, just the music back. And I was so humiliated. Not because not winning, because, they didn't take it seriously. And I stopped writing. And I really think, if I didn't become a composer, it's because of the silence, which taught me something incredible that I think we should all know, that sometimes when we are teachers or grown up, and so one sentence can change the life of someone. And I had a lot of, I don't want to tire you, I have a lot of examples. One sentence.
I'm sure we all do, yeah.
Yeah, can change life. And so this is why I didn't compose. And then when I began to have a career as a violist, I began to write my own cadenzas, always. and which I think, by the way, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I had so much pleasure, with this. And then I arrived to the age of, whatever, 50, maybe more. Forgot, 48, 50. And I had to bring my children to school every morning, very early. And then I went to school, to my school to teach, but my first student would be an hour or two later, because the students don't want to go so early to lessons, and I'm a good-hearted teacher. So there was a period that I didn't have to prepare anything in particular, so I would always improvise. And then one day, the improvisation that I made seemed nice to me, so I just, without even deciding, I just sat down and wrote it. And then I forgot about the viola, and I wrote my solo sonata that so far, people play it, and it was recorded already by 3 different people. And that was a piece, my first piece. And I still, it was really successful, but I never called myself a composer. That was just a hobby. And then I had a sabbatical leave for a semester. And I decided to bemoan leaving the quartet, to bemoan it by writing a quartet. So I wrote my first quartet. And then, it was successful, and I liked it, and it was recorded. And then, I began to write more and more, and until today, I don't call myself a composer because I don't make my living out of it. And so I didn't really stop. By the second sabbatical that I had at school, this time I took the whole year, and I wrote my viola concerto. And I have to say that for me, the biggest pleasure, the biggest musical pleasure that one can have is to play your own pieces. I cannot describe it. Then another thing that I wrote that became known is I wrote my caprices. In other words, what I did, I took every caprice is related to a famous viola piece, if there is a famous viola piece, but it relates to it, and I call it by the first.
By the quote.
Yeah, by the first name of the composer. So Caprice 1, Rebecca, because I use Rebecca Clark.
Right.
And Caprice 2, whatever, Walton. And the funny thing is, one day I played it, and I played all the caprices, but one of them was called Krzysztof for Penderecki, and Penderecki was in the hall.
Oh.
He was not angry that I called him by the first name. Instead, he asked for my music, and he wrote the motif that I used for him. He wrote on top and signed, which was very, very nice.
Lovely.
So every caprice has another name of the composer: Franz, Johannes,
Right.
and the Wolfgang. And the last one is called Unknown.
And who is this composer?
Well, I took a motif from my own solo sonata, but I cannot put my name together with all his names, so I wrote it Unknown. And every time,
you are very mischievous, Ati. You have not changed one bit.
no, I am. It's pleasures of
Now,
life.
you've been on the stage not dozens but hundreds of times,
Yes.
and yet you seem to be obsessed with stage fright. So my guess is that it has something personal, that there's something about your history that made you so fascinated and involved with this whole issue. I know you're
Yes.
giving talks about it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Now that's a very good question. I'm very happy to talk about it. It began with two things. First of all, when I was, kind of a violinist, high school in Israel, I had a huge problem. My bow in the middle would jump a little bit before I continued. And I tried everything to change the way I handled my bow. The only thing I succeeded is to change the place where the bow was jumping.
Right.
And and I never overcame it until I went to study with Gertler that we talked about. And he was a hard teacher, and we had to play 3 months of open strings in his way. But he said, I told you how one sentence can change the life of someone. He said to the class, he said, if you shake, that's really, really a good sign, because it's like you have a heavy suitcase and you leave it on the ground, you're shaking. So you were tense before, now you're relaxed, so your head in the beginning is shaking. I hear this, I go to work, and I said, that's fantastic, I can shake. And that was the last time I shook in my life. The second story was at the Israeli Youth Orchestra. I told you, this was the place. I had another problem that maybe you experienced in Israel too, before we had air conditioning in every place, is sweat. And I was sweating a lot. But basically, when I was playing in a concert, it was like the Mississippi River coming out of my hands, and I didn't know what to do. So here I am at lunch in the Israeli Youth Orchestra, and I hear from another table, I'm sitting with my friends, and from another table, I hear someone, and if I told you his name, you will recognize who it was, just to make it more. It was Ilan Gronich.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He said to his people there with whom he was having lunch, he said, I love to sweat, because when I'm sweating, I know I'm into the music, a typical Ilan Gronich thing. I know I'm into the music. So I hear this and I say, wow, that's a good way to go about it. Next time I'm playing in a concert, I'm thinking that I love to sweat. Could not wait until the next concert to try it. The next concert came, I play, not one drop of sweat came out. And sweat was not a problem for me at all.
This
And
is,
then, yeah.
this, I think this sounds like a good psychiatrist would have done that.
Well, but sometimes one sentence, like.
Yes, of course. Ati, from my experience in teaching, a reason for students to have stage fright is the fear of memory loss. Does this figure in your stage fright?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have, like everyone else, stage fright, but it's not a problem for me. Mm-hmm. It's not, why I'm interested is that, I'm a teacher, and I see it a lot and I want to help. And for me, that's, there are two things. one, I read a book which was called You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman. Feynman was a nuclear physicist, but the story in this book is that he had a theory while he was a graduate student. And his teacher, his professor said, I want you to give a lecture about your theory. And little he knew that people would come from all over the world to listen to it. And he learned about it, you know, at the last minute, last night, and he could not sleep. But then he said, he doubted that he could talk. And then he was on the stage and he said, the moment I opened my mouth, I was totally into my theory and I wanted to present it, the beauty of it and as a whole, and I didn't care who was listening. I read that and I said, this is about stage fright. And
Absolutely.
What we need to do is to totally be in the music when we play. The second thing that I read, because see, like, I'm also interested in sports. You know, I could not decide if I'm going to be a violist or a tennis player. And
I still remember you used to have a special attachment to your viola case where you put a tennis racket.
yeah, you have a good memory. Yeah. So anyway, I bought a book for less than $1 in a second hand books. It's called The Brain. And I read it, and there was one chapter which explained that from the brain to our moving parts of the body, it takes 1.5 seconds from here to here. Yeah, it takes 1.5 seconds, which is a huge time.
Right.
You know? And he explained, you know, that, you know, people who dive, you know, like, you know, should not think about the dive when they're diving, but before. And then they should learn to empty their mind from any thought about diving when they're actually diving. So I learned that, and I, you know, all my technique is based on something that I call anticipation. In other words, to prepare everything, to think about it in advance, and then to go from thinking also from left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. And when we play, we should not use too much of the left side. In other words, we should not try to control. And the memory is we try to control, but when my brain says to my finger, this is an A flat, you know, go put yourself, you know, there on the A flat, it's too late. It's too late because it takes 1.5 seconds. For this to work, we have to play very slowly, you know.
Adi, maybe you can give our students some advice. How do you approach a new score? How do you learn a new piece of music? What is the process?
Okay, that's, you know, that's another hour.
I'm sure, but just a few minutes.
No, it's a very good question, but also everyone is different. But I will tell you really what I like. First of all, I never listen
To a recording.
to a recording before I am ready and I made up my mind. Then I'm interested, but I don't listen to a recording because I really, you know, what I think, you know, I cherish my gut feelings before I change it and stuff. So I don't, you know, like I don't want to be influenced too much. And let me tell you that, you know, like every violist that I hear play Walton Concerto and does and it's why? Because Primrose recorded it and everyone is listening to it and think that's the way to play.
Yeah, it really is a shame because it robs you of the opportunity
Absolutely.
to have a direct dialogue with the score.
Yes. So, by the way, thinking about it, this is the way I feel. You know, Salvador Dali said, the first man who compared the cheeks of a woman to roses was a poet. The second one was an idiot. And that's what I feel. If I'm imitating, you know, I feel like an idiot.
Right.
I don't want it. The second thing, though, I ask my student that while you learn the score and, you know, the analysis and everything, you know, also what I really want you to do is to go around it. In other words, listen to other pieces of the same composer. Listen to pieces that are written at the time, the time that the composer lived, maybe the same country, and then go read books from the same time. Look at pictures, at art, paintings of, you know, if you really want to be inspired. So that's what that's my approach to new.
Beautiful.
Score.
I'm delighted to hear how similar our approaches are.
Yeah, because we were together in the youth orchestra.
You know, if a student comes to play a Debussy sonata for me and they have no idea about Impressionist painters, I don't give the lesson. I send them to the museum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, I had a student. I will not say his name. He's very successful, principal of an orchestra and stuff. He was playing Hindemith, and there was an exhibition. You know, the same period of time in the Artist Institute. This was in Ravinia, and I could not convince him to go see it. I said, this is more important than any lesson you can get about it. Yeah. Yeah, so we agree about that.
Wonderful. Ati, let's just, I know there are two viola players who are eager to play for you a little bit.
Okay.
Can you tell us some amusing, humorous, bizarre anecdotes about your years with the quartet? Just for fun, just for entertainment.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there must be a lot of them.
Okay, I will tell you. Everyone has another habit. Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, it has to do with before the concert, you know. I just improvise, someone else does, you know, whatever. I would not eat anything, you know, I keep it for after the concert. I used before to eat, you know, something sweet because I believed that whatever sugar helps me. The violinist in our quartet had to have a whole meal before he plays. He would not play if he didn't have a meal. And then one day, because in Italy, I think it was, we were late because of traffic and stuff to the concert. And we didn't have time to have, you know, the meal before the concert. But in the green room, you know, they prepared an unbelievable reception that, you know, with lobster going, you know, up and stuff like this. And so another person from our quartet would not play before he really washed his hands thoroughly. So he goes to the bathroom, washes his hands, and then, you know, he opened the bathroom door and he sees the meal eater sitting on the potty, which is closed, with a lobster, huge lobster in his hand. You know, because he didn't want anyone to see that he took from the reception. So he was hiding in the thing, but everyone knows that he's absent-minded, forgot to lock the door.
Oh.
So anyway, it was kind of a funny picture, like someone sitting on the potty with a huge lobster and eating it. I don't know if it's a good story.
It's a cute story. How about an accident that happened on the stage? Something that went terribly wrong and how you dealt
Oh
with
my
it.
God, I know where you are driving. I know where you are driving. I will tell. Okay. We were playing in upstate New York, okay? And we played the concert, and then we were going to play the encore, which was an unknown movement of Schubert, from an unknown quartet by Schubert, the last movement. And we had music, that because of the tour, I didn't want to schlep the Beethoven quartets or the Mozart, so we would cut the pages and put in a binder. So after Dan announced the encore, we play one page, and then I realized that I don't have the rest. I forgot to put the rest. So what I did, I stopped playing, and I announced to the audience, I really don't feel very well, and it's better if we don't continue. And so we went to our green room, which was a big class in this school in upstate New York. And the audience came to see what happens. And then the door opens and the guy comes and said, I'm a doctor. And I say, oh, no, doctor, I know what it is. Really, no, don't worry about me, etc. Then we had a reception. And the reception, there was a meal, a meal which was very important for me because
you don't eat before
the concert.
Right.
So, but they put me in a bed with a cover while they are having the meal. And then Paul Katz comes, he said, Ari, I know how much you love steaks, and this steak is the best we have ever had. So I threw the blanket and went, I feel good now. So that's the story. It's bad enough, no? But Paul Katz, who is a storyteller, and he get excited with his own stories, was telling it to students. And each time with a little bit of exaggeration. So after some years of telling this story, and I already left the quartet or something. So after some years, it became like this. We played in Carnegie Hall. And we played Beethoven Opus 132. It was not an encore anymore. It was Beethoven 132. And Atar forgot, he realized he forgot his music. So he threw himself on the ground. So now all the students knew that Atar threw himself, So one time I was teaching in Ravinia and a student did it, and laughing. And then, I talked to Paul and I said, this is not how it went. First of all, I would never, ever throw myself on the ground with the Paganini Strad in my hand.
Right.
To begin with. Secondly, it was upstate New York, not Carnegie. And it was this movement of unknown Schubert quartet, not 132. But he had very hard to believe me, because sometimes when you tell the stories, you're absorbed in it, and
of course
you believe. So that's something that I will never forget.
This is a delicious story. Thank you, Ati. I think we should, we probably could go on reminiscing forever, but
Yes.
I think we should give a little time to those lovely ladies who want to play for you. So thank you so much for being with us and for the enlightening talk. And I'm going to pass on the mic to you and to the viola players.
Okay, and then, let me just say it was my pleasure to talk to all of you, to tell, but especially Yehuda to reminisce together.
It is wonderful. We should do it again after the pandemic is over, in the same room.
Absolutely. Same stories.
Okay, Ati.
Okay, but just because we don't have time,
Yes.
maybe we should limit ourselves, they play, and then, I do, kind of one remark, or, not a lesson or anything.
Yeah, that'll be up to you.
Yeah, like one sentence or two sentences, and
Whatever observations you choose to make.
okay.
Thank you very much, Ati.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hi. I'm trying to find the music that you sent me.
No worries. Take your time.
Okay.
Good to go?
Yes. Good. Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me, would you mind telling me your age?
I'm 21.
21. And who is your teacher?
David Harding,
Where is it?
Carnegie Mellon.
Ah, okay. So since we don't have time, I want to give you just list of things to think about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First of all, do you know where you know do you know where is the manuscript of this piece?
The manuscript?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not 100% sure because I know that there really is no original.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I want to drive it. That
Okay.
we don't know where is the manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hope that the manuscript is for viola because Anna Magdalena, the wife, she said that whenever Bach was in a special mood, he would go to his studio and play the viola.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when we find it, we'll find out that all this is transcription from.
I hope so.
Yeah. So anyway, but there are, what is called the four sources of the suites.
Mm-hmm.
There is Anna Magdalena, and there is another one for the time, a student, and then there are two for a little later. The first thing they would tell you, I would recommend,
Okay.
to look at them. Yeah, they are available, and I think it's, it's a must for anyone who plays Bach. And when I did it, I said like this: if I see that the four of them agree about the bowing, that probably came from Bach.
Yeah.
And that's my religion. I do it.
Okay.
If they disagree, I would choose from, among them, and from time to time allow myself to deviate a little bit. But I would do it if I were you, to just, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is what I heard was really nice and musical. I like when you do it, it sounds like a dance, which Allemande is.
Mm-hmm.
If I were you, I would do all the 8 notes like this.
Yes.
Some
Okay.
of them were kind of long and they didn't sound like dance.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, I was in a music camp, and I went to a party of students, and in the last day or so, and I saw them dancing, and it was unbelievable. What they invent, the movement and stuff. I said to them, "Why don't you play Bach like this?" Because like it will make it lively. So I think since you do the dance, and I see that you wrote there because you sent me the thing. You wrote light, yeah. So do all of them like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. The next thing that I would say is, for me, how do you decide the dynamics?
So typically dynamics for me, will fall within, if it's a call and response, usually the first one will be a little bit more prominent, and the next one will be a little bit more softer. I
And
think,
and who decides?
um,
Decides. It's more or less. Yes, yes.
yes.
Don't let anyone decide for you.
Okay.
Yeah, don't let anyone.
Mhm.
So I think you should identify all the sequences.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know what sequences are. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So you identify, you mark them even.
Okay.
mark them, and then decide, this one a little more or a little less. This one much more or much less.
Yes.
Whatever you decide, but this is a pleasure to me to be the architect of your piece. That since Bach did not write dynamics, that's an unbelievable pleasure to do that. And I think you should do it, and you should do it much more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will do.
Yeah. And then that's the main thing I wanted to tell you. You can give more from yourself and dare. Because I think, and it's important for me to say this. I think, that too much we, the musical community, made a religion out of Bach. Yeah? And instead of saying this is beautiful or not beautiful, we say this is right or wrong. And people who are more into Baroque tell you what you do is wrong, and people who are not into Baroque say this is I don't know what. Much less today. When I grew up, it was like a real war. But I think Bach, like any other composer, is about being beautiful or not beautiful, communicative or not communicative, attractive or not attractive, interesting or not interesting, but not right or wrong.
I agree.
In other words, anyone who tells you this is the way you play Bach doesn't know not only about Bach, doesn't know about music.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Bach was a very lively. How many children Bach had? Do you know?
Oh, it's in the 20s.
22.
Yes. Okay.
When I tell you, I have 2 daughters. Yeah. And I know that to raise 22, you need to be really lively. They all became musicians, which is amazing. It's not music that, like you have to do this and you have to do that. Yeah? So that's what I'm calling for you to be more personal. And it has to do also with the tempo. Don't let anyone tell you what the tempo is. Yeah?
Okay.
And when I say don't let anyone, I don't include your teacher. It's not that when your teacher say play more, say, oh no, Atar said that don't listen to anyone. I think you should listen to your teacher because, this is what we do. Sometimes even we imitate the teacher, and then when we stop studying, we say, yes, but I want to do this or that. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to tell you. But bravo and very musical, very nice.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. So let me find your music.
All right.
Let's hope that this time. Okay, I have it.
Awesome.
Okay, bravo. So, Alex,
Yes.
would you mind tell me how old are you?
I'm 17.
17. And where are you?
I'm in Indiana.
In Indiana.
Yes.
Who's your teacher?
Michael Strauss.
Uh-huh. So, well, say hi to him when you see him.
I will.
And so here is, uh, as we said, I will have a couple of remarks and then we will call it a day.
Okay.
So first of all, I was talking, if you were listening before, about being fanatic.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to encourage you to be fanatic.
Okay.
About what?
Probably the musicality.
For me, the first thing is the intonation.
Okay.
Yeah. I will tell you why.
Okay.
I will tell you why. Because, like in the future, if I don't know what your ambitions are or what you want to do when you grow up, but anything, you go to an orchestra audition, yeah? The first thing that they listen is the intonation.
Okay.
You could be the most musical person. If it's not in tune, they will say, don't call us, we will call you.
Okay.
Yeah. And to have this intonation, I think all of us, and I'm not talking about you only, all of us, this is one thing that I really think we have to be fanatic. I don't like fanaticism, not in politics and not in, but this, yes, I think we need to. And I will tell you how to be fanatic is not only correcting when you hear it's out of tune. I think you should be really suspectful all the time. And you play a bar and you say to yourself, Alex, is this really in tune? And if the answer is no, maybe, or even if it is maybe not, then you don't get self-judgmental. You just say, okay, that's why I'm practicing. I'm correcting it. So you do it again, and you ask yourself, Alex, is this in tune? And if it's not yes, with capital Y, you just do it again until you get it. Then you got it. You meanwhile played 2 times out of tune and 1 time in tune. You will probably remember the out of tune. So make sure that you play more times in tune than not.
Okay.
So this is the first thing, that when you work on the intonation. So we call it suspect and detect, not only when you are bothered, but when every note that you are playing. And if I were you, I would do it for a little while, take this thing above anything that you are doing. And remember also is that when we play, not so much in tune, we get used to it and then, we don't hear. So I really, really want you to suspect.
Okay.
That's one thing. The second thing that I would say about that is there is one thing that I want you to really learn, is that, and this is really important for you, it's why once you played a note, once you play the note, don't correct it ever,
Okay.
even if it's out of tune. And if it's in practice, you do it again. But don't correct, because we are used to correct, and then the playing becomes kind of unsure, and we feel like we are in the dark looking, for something that we need to find. One time I, after I left the quartet, I played the Bartok concerto somewhere, and everyone was, oh, it was fantastic, and okay, and I was glad too about my performance. I was ready, and then the radio came. That was in Houston. The radio came and said, "We recorded it. Are we allowed to broadcast it? Would you allow us?" And I said, "Sure, but let me listen to it." And then I listened, and I could not believe that almost every shift there was a little correction. And what bothered me the most is that I didn't hear it, because my mind corrected it. We like ourselves and we like what we do, and I didn't notice this. Since then, I was shocked. Since then, I became fanatic about it. So you would not hear me practicing and playing a note sharp and laureate. I would just do it again. And I think you should do it too.
Okay.
Because I noticed in your playing the same thing. When you shift, always there is a little search in the dark. I don't want that. And in order to learn to do it, I think you should take 2 weeks of your practicing life and say, "Alex, I'm not correcting anything. I'm doing it again." And you will feel a lot of difference. So this is what the advices that I would give you
Okay.
about playing. And then, I want, maybe since it's the end, I will tell you also that this is Casa de Su, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, when I grew up, no one knew Casa de Su. We knew either Johann Christian Bach or Handel or, stuff like this. It's only later that we knew that he wrote it. So I wrote a concerto very recently for viola and strings that I call it "Ceci n'est pas un Bach." This is not Bach. And what I do is I imitate Bach, the whole concerto. I try to be Bach, and exactly like Casa de Su did. And so I tried, to do that. And then, I already played it like at least 3 or 4 times, and I think it's nice. But I think it's nice, and I have a lot of pleasure playing it. But one day, before I played it, I was sitting, kind of reading or something, and the radio was playing Bach concerto. And suddenly, after I wrote this thing, it sounded so fantastic, what Bach, so perfect. So I took my music of the imitation of Bach, and I wrote a title for it. This is not Bach. Yeah, so that's, I just wanted to tell you that I did exactly like Casa de Su, with one difference. He didn't say that it was his. I said that it was mine. Yeah. And you know from where it comes, the word Ceci n'est pas un Bach? This is not Bach.
Mm.
It comes inspired by a painting of Magritte, who a surrealist Belgian, who drew a fantastic pipe, and he wrote in French, he wrote, "This is not a pipe." And no one knew why until it was discovered. His friend was Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, you know who it was? He was a psychiatry, very, the father of psychiatry. And Sigmund Freud said that people smoke because it makes them think about the breast of their mother. And so Magritte asked Sigmund Freud, so that's why you smoke the pipe, because you think about the breast of your mother. And Freud said to him, oh, no, this is just a pipe. So the answer of Magritte was to draw a pipe and say, this is not a pipe. So this is why I called my piece, This Is Not Bach. Anyway, I don't know why I was telling this, but maybe it's a nice coda.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Atar Arad, we have one question from our audience for you really quick to wrap it up.
Okay.
And someone I think you might know, our violin faculty member, Peter Zazovsky.
Oh, wow. I
And
can't see him though.
no, he's watching though and is with you in spirit. And he writes to you, Dear Atar, would you give your opinion about performing Mozart's Symphony Concertante with the viola tuned one step higher? Also, do you remember playing this together in Brussels with Brian Priestman?
So the answer to the second question is two words, of course. Of course, I remember. And the moment that you said Zazovsky, it's the picture that, now my opinion about playing the Mozart tuned higher is absolutely. And and what I think is, if nothing, first of all, it sounds better, I think. If nothing, is that there is at least one note that you cannot play, that what he wrote, that you cannot play if your viola is not tuned that way. And for me, one note to play, to try to play what Mozart wrote is a must. Now, I think the drawback of it is, I remember when we played in Brussels, I didn't take my first viola because I didn't want to tune it so high. And so that I kind of regretted that, because I played with two fantastic violinists. One was Zazovsky, Peter Zazovsky, and the other one was Hirschhorn, Philip Hirschhorn. And I think, like when I play with people like this, I could take my Amati with me, and maybe even ask the orchestra to tune the A, a little lower, because, I was really afraid to take the Amati and tune it so high, because in the time of Mozart, it was, the tuning was lower. But absolutely, and I have to say something, that I liked it so much to do it, that one day I was in Aspen, and I had to play Kegelstadt Trio. And I was always bothered by, the balance between clarinet and viola in the Kegelstadt Trio. So a day before the concert in Aspen, suddenly in the 5 o'clock in the morning, I said, oh, I have an idea. And I got up and I wrote my part, in instead of, like it's E flat, instead I wrote in D, like the Mozart Symphonic Concertant. And then I came and I tuned my viola half tone higher, and I played it like this. Like it was the same day or the day before that the idea came to me. So yeah, that I liked it better, the Kegelstadt. There was one note in the first movement that I could not play. And you can accuse me, say that I just said 30 seconds before that every note that Mozart wrote we have to play, but I was criminal about that. And then there is a place that goes tim padam padam yam pa to A flat, but for me it was a G, so I played it harmonic. And then people who didn't know that I tuned that way came to me and said, Atar, we know you can play the viola, but how can you do an harmonic with an A flat? And I really laughed. But I cannot see Peter. What?
Correct. Yeah, he's just joining us as an attendee today.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, hi, Peter. Yes, I remember, like yesterday.
Well, I believe we have no more questions. And we also, I'm sure on behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing your quartet stories and working with our viola students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and thank you for asking me.
Of course, and also a quick thank you to Alex and Sarah for their beautiful performances and contributing to the masterclass. So I just wanted to make note of the donation link and presentation schedule I have included in the chat. Tomorrow morning, we are having a conversation about what is trending now with being musicians during this time of quarantine. So that's a very relevant talk tomorrow morning. And then later that evening, tomorrow night, we will be having a presentation on another vocal masterclass. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And we hope to see you tomorrow for more events.
Bye.